who has time to read? Winner is the podcast for busy minds who crave the insights and depth of great books, but don't have hours to spare. Hosted by your AI duo, Jane and Dane, we deliver concise, engaging conversations that explore key themes, major takeaways, and fascinating ideas. Whether you're commuting, working out, or taking a quick break, Winner is your go-to for staying connected to the literary world without the time commitment. Deep dives for busy minds.
Today's deep dive takes us into Colleen Hoover's It Ends With Us. And specifically, we're going to be focusing on the protagonist, Lily Bloom.
Okay.
Or is it Blossom? Wait, hold on. Is it Bloom or Blossom? Because
that's a good question, yeah.
I mean, with a name like either of those, her life's got to be interesting, right? And from these excerpts you gave me, I think we are in for a whirlwind.
Yeah. You are right about the interesting life, for sure.
Yeah.
You know what I think is so interesting is that Hoover puts us right in it right away with Lily. So she's this successful florist. She's running her own business. She seems like she has it, together.
Right.
And then, bam, you're hit with these, like, gut-wrenching memories of her past and her dad's abuse toward her mom.
It's like she's built this independent life for herself, but it's like these echoes of her past are still, like,
so present.
So present, yeah.
It's that contrast that's so intriguing, though, right?
Totally.
And then on top of that, you bring in these two, like, incredibly different men in her life.
Yes.
So on the one hand, you have Ryle's successful neurosurgeon, like, screams confidence, ambition, very like Lily herself, actually.
Yeah.
But then there's Atlas.
And then there's Atlas, and he's like this whole other like element to this whole thing. He represents that, like, childhood connection, someone who saw the same trauma she did. Like, how much does shared pain, especially at a young age, influence how we understand love and intimacy later on?
Right, and especially with it being someone who's,
is an authority figure, right? Like her father.
Yeah, and how so really experiences how they shape our views,
Okay, so we have this woman, clearly driven, successful, but her past experiences, especially with family, very present. And she's caught between these two guys, Ryle, who's like ambition, 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 and then Atlas, who understands her pain.
Right. Totally different ends of the spectrum.
Talk about, like, complicated.
Talk about complicated, yeah.
It's like she's drawn to aspects of both of them that reflect different parts of her own story, but it's like those aspects stem from unhealthy situations.
Exactly. And it's funny how that happens, right? It's like this classic case of, like, we're drawn to what we know.
Oh, 100%.
So as chaotic as Lily's upbringing was, that becomes her blueprint for love. And the intensity, the passion, even the unhealthy patterns can feel, in a way, familiar, even safe.
Yeah. It makes you think about, like, even your friends.
Well, absolutely.
Or people you've known, you see them fall into these similar patterns.
Yes.
Is it, like, subconsciously you're seeking out what's familiar, even when it's clearly not good for you?
Yeah, and it's almost like our brains are wired to seek out those patterns.
Right.
So for someone like Lily, who grew up seeing her dad's possessiveness disguised as love, it makes sense how those traits in Ryle, even though she sees them as red flags, there's still that pull.
Of course.
It's like her emotional compass is a little, I don't know. Skewed. Yeah, that's a good word.
It's fascinating, though, and scary how your past can do that.
It really is. It really is.
Like, influence your present.
Yeah, and it's not just romantic relationships. Right. It's friendships, work dynamics.
Right.
Even just how you are with yourself.
Totally.
So recognizing the pattern and understanding where it comes from, it's super important.
Speaking of red flags,
okay,
can we talk about Ryle for a sec?
Yeah, let's talk about Ryle.
Because, undeniably charming, successful.
Yes.
But there's this possessiveness.
Yes.
Anger, even his thing in the beginning where he's like, oh, I don't believe in marriage.
Right, like commitment, like he's not really into it.
It's like left and right, Hoover setting off alarm bells.
Totally
like
sad.
Ding, 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 ding.
It's true, she is.
It's even more unsettling because she sees it.
Yeah.
Like she even says like, oh, that was kind of a turnoff when you said you don't believe in marriage.
Right. Exactly. And I think that's what makes her such a compelling character, you know. She's not oblivious to these things.
Right.
She's seeing them. She's acknowledging them. But there's still that pull towards him that she just can't shake.
It's like that saying, we accept the love we think we deserve.
Oof. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, do you think that's kind of at play here with Lily and Ryle?
Yeah.
That she's like, maybe subconsciously, she's like, well, this is what I deserve.
Yeah.
Based on past experiences.
Totally. That's such a good question. And I think it gets at like the core of what Hoover's trying to do, you know, because Lily's sense of self-worth, I mean, let's be honest, it's been totally like skewered by her childhood.
Yeah, of course.
And you grew up with a parent like that, it can really warp like your sense of what's okay in a relationship, what's normal. And you start to like normalize those red flags and minimize your own needs.
Right. That's I think what's happening.
Right. And it makes the contrast with Atlas even more like poignant.
Oh, totally.
Because here's this guy who represents like kindness.
Yes.
Empathy.
Yes.
A safe space.
Totally.
He understands her pain in a way that like Ryle, I think, with all of his, you know, polish and confidence and whatever.
Right. The success and all that.
Could never.
He can't.
You know what I mean?
He just can't. No. And I think that is where you see, you know, when she has those moments with Atlas, you see that other side of her that's just yearning for that safety.
Yes.
And for like being truly seen.
Yeah, like genuinely.
And understood, yes.
And like loved in a way that's not like, I don't know.
Right.
With all the conditions. Yes. It's not an outburst of love or anger. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. And there's that part where, like, she finds him living in that, like, abandoned house.
Yes.
And she's the one who breaks down.
Yes. And he comforts her.
And he comforts her. You know, like, it's like their roles are reversed from what you would kind of expect.
It's true.
And he becomes, like, her anchor in that moment.
Right. And I think, you know, a lot of that comes from that history.
Totally.
They
get it.
They get it. They've experienced the same pain, the same fear. There's this unspoken understanding there.
Of course.
That bond, like forged in this really difficult experience, you know? So it makes sense that she'd feel drawn to that.
Totally.
Like a deep connection.
Right. And even with all of that, even with him being this, like, healthier alternative, she still chooses Ryle.
It's true. And it's heartbreaking because you think, okay, well, if she, who's clearly, you know, strong, independent,
right,
can't break free from this, what hope is there for the rest of us?
Right. And like, I don't know.
Yeah. And it's important to remember, healing is not linear.
No, not at all.
It's not this straight line. There's no magic switch. And I think her choosing to marry Ryle, despite all of her reservations, speaks to how insidious this cycle can be.
Right.
It can feel almost impossible to get out of.
Yes, exactly.
Even when you're aware of it.
Yeah, and then there's that scene where she's watching her parents fight.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And she like instinctively reaches for a knife.
I know, it's like chilling because you see how deeply ingrained these patterns are.
It's so sad.
It's so sad.
And Atlas is the one who's like protecting her.
Yes.
Not even just from her father at that point,
Totally.
but from herself, you know?
It's so true, and it highlights that lasting impact.
Right.
And how damaging it can be to witness that.
Totally.
And not just the physical, but the emotional, the psychological.
Yeah, it's 100%.
The scars that it leaves.
Okay, so we're left with Lily at a crossroads.
Yes.
Right. She's made this choice.
Huge choice.
Potentially destructive, who knows?
Right.
And then the excerpts end, and it's years later. She sees Atlas. She's pregnant. It's like her world's about to be
flipped upside down.
Thrown for a loop again. Like, what would you do? It's like, we talk about breaking the cycle, but what happens when the cycle is all you've ever known?
Right.
It's easy to judge Lily's choices, but you're in it with her, you know?
You are?
You're feeling that weight of her past. You're feeling the confusion of her present.
Totally. And I think that's what's so great about Hoover's writing.
Right.
It's not about like providing these easy answers or like judging her characters.
Right.
It's really about like exploring how complex people are.
Yeah.
And how messy things are.
Right.
And it's interesting because sometimes like the most profound stuff comes from those messy, like, unresolved moments.
Yes, and speaking of messy, we can't forget about, like, her mom.
Oh, right, and the mom's, like, a whole other...
Yeah, like, talk about... That just adds another layer, right?
Oh, totally.
Like, heartbreaking to see, like, her frustration with her mom's inability to leave.
Right, and that feeling is so common, by the way, with people who grow up in those situations.
Of course.
You feel helpless.
Yeah.
You're a kid. You feel responsible for your parent.
Of course.
You're carrying that.
It's a lot.
It's too much, way too much. And it makes those journal entries to Ellen DeGeneres, so...
Oh, my God, I was going to say,
oh, yeah.
Don't even get me started.
It's like this secret, right?
Yes.
Like you're looking into this window of her hopes and her dreams and her fears.
Yes.
And she's, like, reaching out for a lifeline,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and, like, someone who represents, like, strength, you know?
Totally, and it's like, she never actually sends them.
Right.
But just her writing them is powerful.
Totally.
Because it's like, she's processing...
She's finding her voice.
Exactly. She's finding her voice.
And even if, you know, like, Ellen's never going to see it. In her mind, it's like, I'm connecting.
Yeah, it's almost like she's, like, nurturing her own resilience in a way.
It is. It's like she's creating that safe space for herself.
Exactly. Exactly. 100%.
Where, like, she can be completely honest.
Yes, and she doesn't have to worry about, like, judgment or anything. Yeah.
And you do see these, like, moments of, like, her strength and her resilience.
You do. You do.
Like, remember when she's describing her vision for the flower shop?
Yes.
It's like she's creating a world, a sanctuary of beauty and possibility. And it's like, this is where I'm going to blossom.
Right. This is her happy place.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes the ending so powerful, you know, because we leave her at that crossroads.
Right.
Her marriage is, like, falling apart. She's pregnant.
Yep.
Atlas is back.
Yep.
What is she going to do?
Right. How's this all going to play out?
Yeah, like, how is this going to go? And I love that she doesn't give us the answer.
Right.
She leaves us with that.
It's true. And it's like, that's life.
That is life.
It's messy. You make a choice. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's not. You live with it, but there's always the possibility, you know?
Always hope. Always a chance for growth. Always a chance to change. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a great place to end it, don't you?
Yeah, I think so.
It's like, it's not neat and tidy, you know, like life, but it makes you think.
It does. And I think those are the best kinds of stories, the ones that stick with you.
Totally.
Make you think about yourself, make you think differently.
Ask those hard questions.
Yes. Those are the good ones.
Well, this has been great.
This was fun. I enjoyed it.
Super insightful. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Of course. Of course.